Good afternoon, everybody. It's Matt Smart here. I want to thank you for tuning in to my show. Today, we're going to talk about how whataboutism destroyed debate in the country itself. I mean, because you have to realize that the whataboutism is how people preempt conversations so that way conversations can happen. And you have to really understand that it's really not that hard to be informed on anything to what you're talking about in society. It takes time in order to be competent with anything that you do in society. But there's going to be a lot of people who's going to want to skip over the process of relevance in society and how they actually get over is by throwing whataboutisms out there. Because you have to realize that a lot of these people have been radicalized by the things that they actually listen to. Information in books went from a particular point of you just accepting the information and practicing it. Then it came to a level of, do I like the presenter of the information to which it actually is being presented? So you have to realize that objective truth itself doesn't need an audience. Objective truth is truth because you can actually prove it. But a lot of people in society want to be accurate beyond reasonable doubt. And that's kind of where the problem lies in. I know it's kind of hard not to tie this back to what happened early last week, but it's vitally important when people who carry flags, people who have this certain way that the country works, the only thing that they need is for everybody else not to have the same rights that they do for everything to work in their favor. And that's how things work. And you have to understand that before we got rid of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, when all these companies started combining, media companies that is, and the rise of syndication, so now one message could get broadcast across the United States of America, and especially in the small towns. This is what given rise to what we have right now. This is why when you have a conversation with a person, you already know what they're going to say in return based off the talking points that you normally hear on radio. Because these people did not want to practice the rule of law. The only thing they wanted to practice is a certain specific type of rule of law that protected their biases, but didn't give everybody else the same level of protection within the environment. And whenever you would challenge them, they would just hurl out some insult. Nowadays, it's socialist, communist, Marxist, all this kind of stuff. They couldn't tell you what year, what administration, what this stuff actually did to the people. They just call it that. Why? Too stupid to go look up the information themselves. It's a shortcut to short circuit conversations. It's like when you have mentally ill people within the space, you're on a specific subject and they come in off topic and talk about something else totally different than what you're actually talking about. That sort of whataboutism is dragging the conversation down or across to them rather than staying on the subject matter so that way they could be able to participate in the conversation. Now, the conversation was not about their particular topic per se. So they would jump into a conversation and drag the conversation over into another direction. So that way they can be part of the conversation that wasn't initially meant for them. Because no one practices a certain level of order within the environment. They don't have, like order comes from like respect. It's kind of like a subset of it. But when you have people who operate in a very feminine aspect all over society and they kind of carry it on in other environments, it's kind of hard to deal with people. Like you shouldn't be walking into or even speaking to somebody online within their environment, calling themselves trolling or trying to play both sides or just trying to be the middle guy. Well, I'm just here for the conversation, asking stupid questions about the conversation, like all types of stuff. Another whataboutism that we have within the States is the 94 crime bill whataboutism. We have that specific type of whataboutism that it was okay for this individual to sell poison within the environment. Somehow they live long enough to keep existing on the same planet that we exist on. For some reason, they're mad at everybody else because they did a whole bunch of time over the stuff that they really got themselves into. And somehow, rather than putting the kids first, we should focus on broken ass adults who never really respected the other adults of the current age that they currently are. That we get to focus on them. That's like another whataboutism. You have all types of whataboutism. The relationship argument, in itself, how ridiculous it is at this point. We know how these people have abused these men within the environment. Nobody is at odds with how that stuff went down. But everybody wants to act like everybody has been somehow at some sort of breakthrough with others within the environment when it comes to this talk. And it just doesn't make any sense. That's another one about it. But what aboutism of trying to explain why you're still on the market, even though you had infinite choice? Yes, I mean, it happens all the time. But the actual debate within this country has come down to the point to where most of these people are radicalized in what they are. Now, it's not that hard to pick up a book to learn the actual history of the things going on inside the environment. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. Like, if you pick up a history book and learn the history about this country, and especially what happened, it's not going to take you that long. But once you have the information, you're inexperienced. You cannot be weaponized initially. Once you understand what's going on with the environment, and that takes a long time to get deprogrammed. As you know, as I travel across the country, not right now, but when I was, everywhere you go, it's a different set of group of people that you meet that have the same exact talking points, who have the same type of ignorance floating around inside their head, all based on what about this? You ask them a very specific, direct, and straightforward question, and they give you a generalized trail off in another direction answer that has nothing to do with what you just said. But this is where we are. You can't even have a debate because people don't care about the truth. They care about being right. Even if they have to lie about it, even if they have to track down some information and just throw it into the fray, anything. to not seem wrong about what they're actually talking about. This is just where we are. Yeah. You remember it, Mike? We're talking about specific issues when it comes to police mistreatment of actual people in very specific circumstances. What about Chicago? Comes right into the mix, right out of nowhere. You can't even talk about something very specific, a crime that's very specific. Because in the courtroom, they would just yell, objection, relevant. 2 words, objection, relevant. But that's what we are. We can't even talk about simplistic things because people want to protect a certain level of power so much to where they would be abjectly dishonest in how they put forward with conversation. This is where you are. Because a lot of these people don't care about the rule of law unless it operates in their favor. And I agree with you, Keith, that you're pretty much just dealing with people who are just flat out dishonest. They don't have an honest bone within their body. And they think that they can paper over everything that they do within the environment by just having a whole bunch of people like what they're doing, a whole bunch of people agreeing with what they're doing. But at the end of the day, this stuff doesn't work. You have to care about how these things go and how they end. Especially if you want other people to move on from a particular point of path to where you are within the environment. You got to have a very specific way of handling it. If not, you're going to be consistently in a corner that you're trying to get yourself out of your entire life. You got to get rid of this fake it till you make it stuff. That's a whole life full of what about it. Kind of like having 16 things on an actual business card when you know damn well you can only do 2. That's the same thing. But you have to realize that you have to get away from most of these people within this environment and focus on yourself so that way you're not caught up in keeping these things around far longer than they need to within this environment. Otherwise, you'll always be susceptible to the whataboutism nonsense. I make people prove their point. I don't care if you're on my team or not, or on my side of it. Whatever it is that we're talking about, it should have some sources, some reputable sources that we have to be cross-reference. There's a lot of people within this environment who just want to be right for the sake of being right. It doesn't matter when everything else happens. That's just what we are. Like most people were clout chasing conservatism within this environment. Why? The only political party that you can be a part of, and you don't have to bring any type of facts to the table. They know damn well conservatism was winning all over the country with sheer numbers and sheer money and sheer personalities and sheer views and most views per night. According, yes, you didn't even have to even know the history of what you were talking about. You didn't even have to even know the history. Actually, you can have bad rationale on why you was a certain type of person or conservative. It didn't matter. And the people who you were arguing with on the other side told you what the history was of these things. Nobody wants to believe it. Now you got a nice living example of what we were talking about the entire time. about how this stuff never really changed, about how this stuff always stayed the same, about how both of the parties did switch. Well, you had people within this environment trying to tell me, a person from Mississippi, that somehow the Democratic Party from the 1800s are the same Democratic Party, the members of it are the same right now. You have people that stupid still within this environment who still talk that way. Then you had individuals who played the whataboutism when it came to math. Crazy. Whataboutism for simple, basic protection within the environment. But they call themselves conservative. And somehow they're supposed to be pro-life, right? Pro-life guys walking around without any type of face covering who want to affect everybody else within the environment. Doesn't even understand nor care about what happens. Walking contradiction. And that's where you are within the environment. And you're talking to complete sociopaths because they know the normal form of having a conversation within the environment. But then they just come there, talk while you talking, completely lie about stuff that we can see with our own two eyes. Anything to not comport with actual society and environment. And then they have the nerve to call themselves conservative on top of it. This is how your normal 100% free will and liberal would act. But these are the people within the environment who want to be called conservative. I guess it's a type of conservative. You know, you're conserving yourself and what your view is. But this is why these people don't read anything. Because they don't read anything because they assert rights. They act on those asserted rights. But they never want to inform themselves on the actual meaning of the right, so that way they don't lose their rights inside their head that they've asserted. That's what you got here. And it's truly not that difficult within the environment to not be this way. I got a brother of mine, he's in the South, he was telling me about how those people, even down there, everybody was walking around like there was no problem with what happened in Washington, D.C. They had no problem. They wasn't going to get involved, but they didn't have no problem with nothing. But it's like, it's the sheer failure inside the environment that lets people operate within the same environment while not playing with the same type of deck everybody else. Yeah. Now the whataboutism has got so far out of control that Fox News is now split into 3 different camps. You got the One American News Network camp, now you got the Newsmax TV camp, and now you got the Fox News camp. These are the people who are feeding these domestic terrorists, and they always have. This is where we are. And that's something that I really didn't like, how everybody wasn't conservative because they didn't deal with the domestic counterpart within the environment, but not smart enough to move on to another counterpart somewhere. Tell you, man, this stuff is crazy, guys. But you have to understand, Boomer, that it wasn't that he was the most masculine president that they ever had seen. It's that he was the only masculine type of person that they respected, the president. And that's quite different than masculinity how everybody else. Yeah, the guy did not follow the process at all. He trolled his way all the way to the White House and actually got in. He didn't care about the process the whole time when he was there. He burned down nearly every single institution that he saw. And then he tried to set the place on fire with his own people. This is the type of stuff that these people respect. That's the problem. But these are the people who are sitting around waiting for you to put them on. Because guess what? I'm tired of some of these people who even think like that. And guess what happens when they get caught? There's always a whataboutism as excuse. Oh man, I was just trying to make some extra money. And you know, all these type of things don't make any sense. But you got to understand that it's far easier to live in the truth in the here and now than for you to live a consistent life. Because I have never seen, unless they're a paid person to do it, I've never seen a very successful whataboutism type guy. I've never seen it. Because normally, if you run your whole life through the whataboutism lens, you're going to be at the bottom of everything that you do. Because you're never going to be able to problem solve on a realistic level because you're never going to be thinking that. Right? Not if you get paid for it. This is where we're at. And the what about Israel failure comes back to the environment to socialize the problems and the circumstances. It's normal for everybody else in the environment. This is why you have older men still talking about child support within the environment. This is why you have older men not trying to police the actual criminals that come within the environment. They want to be friends with. This is why you got older men coming into the environment trying to make excuses for the counterpart's behavior within the environment. These are the things that are going on. But you have to realize the answer to all of this stuff is very simple. The moment you have your stuff together and the relevance of these problems that are easily dodgeable are nowhere near your life, you're going to be fine. But they come back to make sure that these problems are a normal part of your life and that you should have to be a part of your life like everybody else. And it's just not something that you need to do. This is why this thing is such a problem. You've sabotaged everybody's ability to be able to move forward in the environment. The moment you start living a lie, the moment you start getting away with it, the moment you get around other people who do the same damn thing within the environment, it really poisons the way things actually should work within the environment. Because now you got more pretenders than actual practitioners within the environment. And now the actual practitioners become the enemy in the environment because we know how things should go and they want to sit back and entertain. That's also a what about it. You got to understand when you're being talked down to, rap. You have to understand why that's how somebody talks down to you and play you for a fool and not know much about the issues that goes on within your environment, but somehow want to be a spokesman for you within the environment. That's not a problem within itself. But how is it not that much of a problem if you have older black men who don't want to speak up? These are the things within the environment that has to change. And actually, the split is going to come down to your actual value system within the environment. But you're going to have to be able to exist outside of this paradigm that you see around you. You're going to have to gain a new sense of your position within this entire system. Most of that's going to come from having a strong sense of self and knowing that you don't need nobody else's help in order to move forward within the environment. That you should try to be respected by equals in the environment, not lessers within the environment. That you try to team up with equals within the environment, not lessers within the environment. But this is where we are within the environment, where everybody has to keep everybody else's secret within the environment. That's another one about it. How it's perfectly normal to have abject failures and people who are minimally successful in the same space within the environment. But everybody has to live the lie of trying to keep everybody's secret so that way no one knows how far everyone else is behind within the same environment. You got to understand that you just choose your values. Your whole life is supposed to be a referendum on everything that you've been through, seeing other people go through, and make sure that none of that stuff is going to be able to happen within your household. Some of those things you're not going to have control over, thanks to some of the people who you bring within your life, but that's what your life is supposed to be. Situations you're born in, you don't get to choose. Family that you have, you don't get to choose anything. But once you start striking out on your own and starting to get your stuff together, that's where all the choices get made. That's where you have the most amount of effect. Once you get your choose. But at the end of the day, you're not keeping something around that doesn't really need to be there. Because at the end of the day, if you keep something around that doesn't need to be, now you're far behind. Now you need to get caught up extra quick. And when you need to be caught up extra quick, that's how you get in contact with the culture war. You have to understand that the culture warrior does not care about your betterment within. So that's all I got on the particular topic subject. I got to be able to get out of here because I got to catch a flight to get back to Denver. So I want to thank you guys for coming through. Tomorrow, like this time, subscribe. You guys are